Hi, Jennifer Stuart here. I'm so excited to be able to chat with Dr. Doan today. He is a phenomenal person. He has done so many incredible things with research for children and many other things. He is a recognized expert in digital media addictions with a doctoral degree in neuroscience. His background in molecular neuroscience adds in-depth knowledge into the areas of internet addiction, video game addiction, and technology addiction. Dr. Doan is the author of Hooked on Games. He earned a Bachelor of Arts degree in biology from Reed College. He completed both his medical degree and doctoral degree in neuroscience at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine. So, and I want to add that Dr. Doan is both a PhD and an MD. So we have a lot of educational background here. So welcome to the Peace and Joy Parenting Summit, Dr. Doan. How are you today?
Thank you for inviting me, Jennifer. It's wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to have you. So one of your biggest specialties is technology and the effects on kids and young kids and older kids and then adults eventually. And it's something that's near and dear to my heart because as a teacher, I see the effects of how, kids come to the classroom and they spend so much time on technology and they have a hard time focusing. I mean, we've had to scrap a lot of more relaxed activities in the classroom. We have to really keep their attention to be like a video game that's flashing with lots of colors. And so this is something that's been really bothering me for a long time. So I'm excited to chat with you about this. So what are some of the biggest effects that you are seeing from younger children spending a lot of time on electronics?
So before I answer that question, I should qualify that, from my clinical experience, I'm an ophthalmologist as an MD. So I'm an eye surgeon, and I get quite a few parents and kids into my clinic, for eye checkups because of learning disabilities, or let's say, they want to check if the vision's okay because they're slow in developing reading, or maybe their math skills are not as good. Sure. And so I have clinical experience in that aspect. And then also my knowledge and fund of knowledge is based on the backbone of giants, other researchers and other clinicians. And in this day of internet, anybody can go to the National Library of Medicine on PubMed and research and verify with research articles of what I will share with you today. And so the first thing that I like to share is that digital media acts like a drug on the brain and on the body. What I mean by that is that we can actually use digital media in virtual reality headsets and also handheld devices, and they can actually act like a 10 milligram equivalent of a benzodiazepine or a Valium, or even a mild cocaine in pain reduction. And we know this because we're using it in clinical medicine to sedate kids before surgery. We're also using it in burn clinics up at the University of Washington, for example, to scrub the burns off of burn victims in both pediatric and adult patients. And while they're playing video games, they actually claim it to be fun. And then also at Cedars-Sinai with Applied VR, they're using it with now in pregnancy and childbirth. It can actually reduce pain and discomfort of the mother while she's going through child labor, using VR headsets and playing video games and VR guided meditation. So that said, we need to approach as parents knowing that when we give a digital screen to a child, it may be equivalent to giving them a drug to calm them down. So if we do that chronically or actually excessively and use it too much, it can actually inhibit brain development. So what we will see are mental disorders. We will see increase in ADHD symptoms. We will see in problems with impulse control. We will see problems with empathy. We will see problems with even autistic behaviors. There are doctors that are around the world, from Saudi Arabia, France, in Ukraine, who have been working with something they call virtual autism. So on the extreme side of things, we are seeing autistic behaviors being induced by digital screens. And we know that it's digital screens because when they remove the digital screens, the kids get better. So in clinical medicine is that if you have a problem, let's say you have, radiation in your house, and all of a sudden you remove that radiation source, let's say radon, or let's say, you happen to live next to a nuclear reactor, and they remove that radiation source, and clinically people are getting better. That is the problem. And so that's why we know that digital screens, when they're used excessively, can either make an existing mental problem or even create a mental problem in young kids.
I like that you said that we're able to remove it and they can get better. That's very good to know as a parent, right? So.
Oh, absolutely. So this is work by Dimitri Christakis. He's an MD. He's the head of Seattle Children's Hospital. This is also work done by Victoria Dunkley. She's a pediatric psychiatrist out of Los Angeles. She wrote a book called Reset Your Child's Brain. She has hundreds and hundreds of cases where literally a 30-day fast of removing digital media, all TV, all videos, basically video games, no handheld devices, nothing, has improved her patient's recovery. So it ranges from anywhere from maybe temper tantrums to talking back to poor grades, all the way up to ADHD and even psychotic breakdowns and cutting and depression. This is the big white elephant in the room, because we as parents tend to use digital screens for our convenience. And so therefore we live busy lifestyles. And so in a way we look for arguments that justify the fact that we can actually use these devices to give us more time for me time. And there's nothing wrong with that, but we just need to be more creative and walk away from digital media as a way to create more me time. Perhaps, it's getting the kids to be more bored and more interested on building blocks and other types of physical toys or old school toys that we grew up with in our generation, rather than turning right to the screens as a form of a pacifier or babysitter, which actually could affect their brain development.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I love that you say it would be nice for them to play with regular toys, because I see that with the kids I work with. They come in and they have the fun time of the day. They're supposed to play and build and interact. And there's always more and more kids I see every year who have no idea what to do with that. And they come over and they just follow the teachers around, like, tell me what to do. I don't know how to just be and enjoy the world. So I think that's very important. And I like how you stress that being addicted to electronics is similar to some of these really strong drugs, so that hopefully parents can realize how serious this issue can become and take some action steps to reduce that before it's too late, right?
And we're finally catching up, because the pioneers of this stuff is like Dr. Griffiths out of the UK, who's worked on this for over 15 years. There's also Hilary Cash and Cosette Ray out of Restart, which is Seattle. They have the first addiction centers, and they've been doing this for over 10 years. And then we also have Dr. Kimberly Young, who recognized this in the 90s when everyone thought it was a joke. And so she actually has done a lot of research and developed her own addiction recovery center in Pennsylvania, and also works with a lot of clinical patients. And so finally we are catching up. So in 2018, the World Health Organization finally released a statement based on the research and a panel of literally, dozens and dozens and dozens of clinicians and psychologists and psychiatrists, to claim that basically there should be a diagnostic code for gaming disorder. And so we're still behind because there's not a diagnostic code, and there's not a recognition. The field does not recognize, the medical field does not acknowledge that, for example, excessive digital streaming videos can be harmful and cause a real medical diagnosis. They've only declared now gaming disorder. And so we are way behind. I mean, there's social media, there's excessive texting, there's all these things that the brain, if spent too much time doing, will lead to a malfunctioning brain, essentially, because the child's not practicing developing essential milestones, or essential developmental milestones.
Sure. And I'm sure that's hard. That's going to be coming up against a lot of money in all of those games and all of the media. So it's going to be hard to get the media to put that out there, to fight against almost the side that they're on. So, but
Absolutely.
It's great that you're working on this and getting the word out. sure.
And this is a beautiful thing because we're able to, for example, use digital media here. And so the way I break this up is digital media can be broken up to two categories. So parents have to use their discernment to understand this. So one category are digital veggies. So this interview and this way of disseminating information on the internet is a digital veggies. Is actually educational. It's actually helping someone learn. However, the brain, especially in children's brains, because they don't develop fully until age 25, they tend to want digital sugars. So what I tell people is you have to judge your child and how mature they are. If you leave a plate of vegetables and a healthy meal in front of them, but you leave a plate of, let's say, candy and their favorite sweets, and you don't say anything to them, and you leave the room, and when you come back, if they have eaten more sugar than they have eaten their healthy food, you know their brain is not developed enough. And I can tell you a lot of adults don't have that impulse control as well. And so if adults have that problem of refraining from their favorite chocolates or gummy candy or whatever it is, kids who don't have a fully developed brain with a unlimited archive of digital media sugar entertainment, they are not able to resist and have self-control.
Sure. I think there was that one experiment with the marshmallows, right, where they left the kids in the room, and the ones who, they ate them all, didn't have self-control in general in life. So, yeah.
And that's right. And actually, the number one thing that will dictate a child's success is impulse control. So if a child's able to withhold in that marshmallow experiment and say, okay, I'm not going to get my own marshmallows now, but if I wait 10 or 15 minutes or even a half an hour, I will get twice as many marshmallows. Those who have that self-control will be more successful in adult life. And so that is one of the key indicators of success later on, is if they can delay gratification.
Sure. So when the children don't have it, the parents need to be that support, be the self-control support. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like, asking your child who's 8 years old to do 10 pull-ups. Physically, they can't. They're not mature yet. They don't have the hormones to develop the bones and the muscles. They just physically cannot do 10 pull-ups. Now, not all kids are like that. Some are gymnasts at 8 and can crank out pull-ups, right? So those are the abnormal, in terms of or not abnormal, but above average children, right? So we need to basically judge the kids based on their development, but brain development is similar to muscle development, where we're asking kids to develop healthy boundaries, self-control, making mature choices, having forward thought, without the ability to have that physical brain processing power to actually do it.
Sure. No, I like that. Definitely. All right. So on top of that, I realize electronics are not going to go away. And I mean, there's obviously some positive benefits, like you said, we're able to share this information right now. But, there's obviously so many detrimental effects as well on the kids. So, I always try to help parents figure out what they can do. I mean, they have to entertain these kids, and they don't want to be the constant playmate all day. How we're going to get the laundry done or the cooking or the whatever. So do you have any advice to help parents make some better choices, some better decisions to entertain their kids without electronics?
Sure. So the first thing I'd like to say is that, my wife and I, when we do these talks around the world, we recommend parents or encourage parents that you're not here to be your child's friend. You're not here to entertain them. Your children can entertain themselves. And so boredom is actually the beginning of creativity and self-discovery. So allowing your kid to be bored, because then they'll find their toys that they love. They'll basically start to write or color or maybe work on a sport skill or athletic skill. So boredom is wonderful, but you have to treat technology as a tool. It's not a form of entertainment, it's a tool. So similar to tools like automobiles, we don't introduce cars to kids before the age of 15 or 16 in the US. We just don't, because they don't have the brain development. So therefore, there are laws in place that say, hey, listen, you don't give car keys or a driving permit until a child reaches a certain age, usually around 15 or 16. And then insurance companies don't give a break on insurance or automobile insurance on people until they're age 25 because their brains fully develop at age 25. So similar to that, we have to apply technology the same way. So therefore, kids under 0 to 2, for example, or under 2 years old should not get any screen time whatsoever. They should be bonding with the parents. They should be playing with toys. They should be experiencing the environment around them. And then by, let's say, age 3 to age 10, introduce digital media, but in the form of old school cartoons and old school TV shows. So maybe 30 minutes to 60 minutes a day. The problem is every brain has ADD potential, right? Everyone has the ability to multitask and get distracted. However, the modern day cartoons and the modern day shows and the modern day streaming videos are designed to grab your attention by changing scenes every 4 to 6 seconds. Okay, and this is work by Dr. Dimitri Christakis and many others who have actually studied, attention deficit disorders and autistic-like behaviors. They have noticed that basically the modern day shows are changing every 4 to 6 seconds. The parents can look at it and you'll see, just count out the seconds, and it changes scenes, changes music, changes something, and it keeps the brain searching for novelty. The problem with that is that now you have a hyper-stimulated, hyper-aroused child who is unable to sit still and actually listen to a lecture. So if you're using digital media for entertainment and you're using the wrong digital media, one that changes scenes every 4 to 6 seconds, how do you expect your child to sit in school and sit through a class and instruction that lasts 30 minutes? Teachers cannot keep up with the changes in the scenes that the kids are used to. So therefore, they'll never be able to learn as well because learning becomes boring. So what we have to do is pick the old school cartoons that have longer changes in scenes. We have longer changes in the stimuli, so their brains aren't being programmed to want to multitask. They're not being programmed to be ADD. And better yet, if you can just limit the screen time or even cut it out completely, you'll see your children do much better in a classroom. Because there's no way, even the teachers right now who are jumping on their desks and doing a dog and pony dance, they cannot entertain the kindergartners enough because they're so used to these literally every 4 to 6 seconds changes in scenes. And this is why if you watch a streaming video online on one of the popular streaming networks, that's why people edit their videos so they're always changing scenes, because people don't even have the patience to sit down and listen to a lecture anymore. They want something in a sound bite that's less than 60 seconds. Then finally, when the brains can fully develop, you can actually, let's say, or start to be more developed at the age of 11, you can increase that TV time to maybe 90 minutes a day maximum. But if your children have struggles in schools or struggle with interest in reading, you may want to cut that back. So you have to kind of gauge for the children. And I recommend no handheld devices until the kids are way above 13. Let their brains develop so that they can actually understand, sign a contract, understand that there's ramifications of overuse, and if they're looking at things they should not be looking at. And finally, I would recommend introducing video games as a family to play together, maybe at age 13 or 14 or so. Wait till their brains are more developed before you introduce something that's potentially extremely addictive. But if they show signs and symptoms of an addict, you may not even be able to do even a half an hour a day. It's like using, one glass of red wine to manage an alcoholic who has the genetic predisposition for alcoholism, right? And then I would say at the age of 18 is when you give the child the first smartphone. So our kids, we definitely had problems with smartphones and devices, and so we decided to give them flip phones and phones that they can only call and do limited texting. And then when they hit college age, we gave them the smartphone. Well, at that point, their brains are more mature. But you'll see that tech executives, there's actually articles out there on the New York Times and Wall Street Journal talking about how tech executives in Silicon Valley sends their kids to Waldorf schools. And at Waldorf schools, the tech executives and tech families sign an agreement that there's no technology in their homes while the kids are under the age of 16 or so. So literally they have no technology. They go from old school books, they do handwriting, they go old school learning. And why? Because their brain's fully developed and all these necessary skills. And then when you introduce the tool that potentially could deliver either vegetable-like behaviors or activities, and then also sugar-like activities, the kids have a more mature brain to make that decision. I guarantee you, every single time I've seen this, when I've talked all over the world and people give me feedback, and also, talking to my patients, inevitably, if you give a kid an unrestricted tablet, right, where they have unlimited internet, yes, they try to please you, they learn foreign language at first, they do all these great stuff, learn math, but eventually they always migrate towards the digital sugars because the digital sugars are more arousing, more entertaining, and there's a lot more volume of that content out there. And literally they will stream, some kids have streamed all day and night on just using digital sugars to entertain themselves, cartoons, anime, and watching gaming videos, playing games. I mean, literally, the average American child now uses 7 hours, 38 minutes a day. That's the average based on 2010 data on the Kaiser, based on the Kaiser Foundation research. And that's old data too.
Yeah, no, I love how you point out that the top people in the software development and in technology purposefully keep their kids away from it when they're young so they can develop their brains. And I think it's funny that you point out, trying to show them the old-fashioned cartoons, because to be honest, I mean, it's getting harder and harder as a parent to find those. They've been getting rid of them because they're not as popular, because kids do like the ones that flash and change. And I know, that's, I think, one of the biggest things. I'm currently working with young children now, and 4-year-olds cannot sit through what I would consider a good old-fashioned storybook anymore. It has to have lots, just like a short, like one sentence a page, flip the page, has to have a lot of humor, a lot of, like you said, the whole person pony show, so for sure. I experienced that firsthand.
So let's bring this down to why this is. The industry changed because they make money on advertising dollars, right? So eyeballs on the screen per second equates to how much revenue they generate. And it's billions and billions of dollars, right, in advertising revenue. And so therefore, they have to go with what the human mind wants. And so the human mind wants variety. And now with streaming videos, you have uncensored videos. So you have people who are content creators who are not professional academics. They're not there with psychologists and with a team to recommend what's healthy or what's not healthy. I mean, when Mr. Rogers, created his series, he created the content, but he has a team working around him to make sure what's healthy, what's beneficial for kids, and how to deliver it effectively. Now you have people literally streaming online who are content producers, and it's super popular for kids because it's free videos, and all they care about are subscribers and views. And they're doing crazy things to get the kids to want to subscribe to their channel, right? And they don't care about the content, they care about the viewers. So whatever, extreme that can keep them glued on the screens, that's what they'll produce. Same with the mainstream media, for example. They will produce what will keep eyeballs on the screen. So the way to look for those old school content is actually go to Amazon and invest money in buying the DVD series, buy the old school, cartoons, buy the old school, content that we had on public broadcast, service television, or PBS, because you have to invest in your kids' future. If you are not willing to spend money for your kids, but of course people are, because they're buying, thousands of dollars worth of technology and devices for the free content that's out there and the low cost content. So instead of buying the thousands of dollars of technology and gadgets, spend that same amount of money on old school cartoons. And if you run out of cartoons, then, replay them again. Or
go to the playground.
Cut it down, or go to books, right? Or go to something else that doesn't require a digital screen.
Yeah, no, definitely. I like that. And I think parents often feel almost parental peer pressure. I mean, I know, we've fought really hard to keep our kids away from technology as much as we can. But, like, for instance, when my kids were on a soccer game, and sadly enough, in between games now, it's no longer they just hang out and be silly. They're all on their screens. So maybe my kids don't have one, but, Sally and Joe and half the team does. So they all sit down and gather around that kid. So at some point, I think it's hard. And then of course there's always the, so-and-so has this and so-and-so has that. And it's parental peer pressure to give your kids technology. It's silly. So.
Yeah, I'll say this at the end, but I'll say it now to encourage parents. This is similar to the state of cigarette smoking. Okay, back in the 1950s and 1900s, early 1900s, we had doctors who were smoking in smoking ads, saying that, so many doctors prefer this type of cigarette brand, for example, right? We had doctors smoking in the clinical examination rooms when in the early 1900s and even the mid 1900s. But what happened was there was a breakout group when the research studies came out to show that cigarette smoking was associated with oral gum problems, with health problems, with stroke, with cardiovascular disease. Then finally a group decided to break out and not smoke. And guess what? They did better. Their teeth were whiter. They had better breath. Their cars, didn't stink as bad. Their clothes, smelled better. They had better health and better mates and better futures, right? So what happens slowly over time, what you see over the last, 50 years or so is literally now a change in culture where there's laws that ban smoking in public places. So we are essentially in the same boat with digital media right now. So digital media right now, the research is very clear. If you overuse it, it affects your brain, it affects your mental health. Those who don't believe it, that's fine. Let them overuse it. But what I encourage parents, if they can apply what you and I are sharing today, these are gold nuggets. These are kind of like, a preview of what's going to happen in the future. I can guarantee you, and I'm sure you will agree, we can guarantee the parents who watch this show, if they can apply what we are recommending today, their kids' brain development will be way ahead of the average. They will be at the top of their class. They will be more emotionally mature. They will have better shots at academic scholarships and athletic scholarships and things that parents value in terms of success in their children. And so that's what my encouragement would be. Yes, we are outliers. Yes, your kids don't have the devices after soccer games. My kids, don't have devices after soccer games. But in the long term, when everyone else's kids have failed or not doing as well, our kids will do well, and we have better relationships with them when they're adults and successful adults and contributing members of society.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's very important. I mean, that was going to be kind of my next question is, what do you think are the long-term effects? But it seems like you kind of touched upon that there. So definitely.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more mental health issues in kids. Depression. Depression's very high. Anxiety is very high. This is the most lonely generation that's being raised right now. And the way I describe this is that the screen gives me a sense, the digital media gives me a sense of fellowship, right? Like right now, I'm connecting with you, Jennifer, but we really don't know each other, right? And so video chat is one way of connection, but it's not the same as a face-to-face friendship that's long-lasting, long-term. So what happens with digital media is that it is it's an imitation of thrills and imitation of highs in real life. It will hijack, someone's joy, but when a kid does it, their brain does not develop normally because they're giving up other things. They're giving up, let's say, communication skills, empathy, self-control, let's say self-discovery of gifts, friendships, relationships, athletic ability, art, handwriting, reading comprehension, mathematics. It goes on and on. So these are all, let's say, areas of the brain, right? But what happens is so easy to give a child digital media that they literally only develop one area of the brain. Let's say, eye-to-eye contact and quick processing and multitasking skills and maybe some analytical skills involved in that game, or the puzzles that are involved in the games, or even maybe they live the life in fantasy where literally, the child has conflict and gets a climax and resolution in half an hour. That's not real life, right? We're not all superheroes. We don't live like amazing lives, but if they live in a world of fantasy and in a world of digital media where it's TV shows that bring them literally into a conflict, a climax, and a resolution within 30 minutes to 90 minutes. That's what they know. What happens is when their brain develop, the other areas of the brain, communication skills, self-control, mathematics, writing, all these things that I've mentioned before, literally do not develop. So I use the hand analogy as all thumb thinking analogy here as a model for brain development. If they don't practice it, they will lose it. So what happens is as they develop into, let's say, 18 years old, that's all they know. And then that's the scary part, is that how do we rehab a brain that way? So I do see more autistic rates going up. I see more ADD rates going up. I see more mental illness, depression, anxiety, lack of impulse control, lack of sleep, and insomnia problems because they're not sleeping through the night, and they're playing through the night on their digital devices. So all these lead to mental health breakdowns, right? And so we've seen that already. If you look at the autistic rates, for example, and I'm not saying that digital media causes all autism. There is definitely a genetic basis for autism, okay? But in 1975, the rates of autism is 1 in 5,000. In 2018, they think it's 1 to 58. So how did our genetics change that fast?
It's impossible.
That's crazy. If you believe in evolution, Darwin says that anything in evolution cannot change fast, right? That is way too fast. It went from 1 to 5,000 to 1 to 58 in literally like 40 to 50 years. And so the big white elephant in the room is the digital media. And so there are experts who recognize that. And what they do is they go in there and they do the typical ABA, autism therapies, but they do one extra thing. They remove the screens away. The kids that get the screens removed away within 1 month to 6 months, some drop their diagnosis or their autism becomes minimal and functional. I've seen cases where literally after being reassessed, after removal of the digital screens, being reassessed like months later, people claim that there was a misdiagnosis initially. But when the initial diagnosis came in, it was so obvious. They had a 3 to 4 hour evaluation, by the specialist. These are typically pediatricians with extra, training in recognizing autistic behavior. You're talking about a 3 to 4 hour evaluation that was wrong, where they were certain that the child had moderate to severe autism. And then when they removed the digital screens away from that kid's life, language exploded within a month, right? Because a kid, for example, one of the signs of autism, for example, is delayed language development and lack of eye-to-eye contact, right? So if a kid is on a screen all the time, they're not talking, they're not practice speaking, they are glued to the screen, right? So they're not learning how to look at human beings, they're actually attaching themselves to a screen. So therefore, you'll see kids come in with maybe 15 words, 10 words, less than 10 words development. Within a month of literally taking the screens away, they explode from like 10 words to over 100 words. Why? Because now without a screen and being mesmerized all day in front of a screen, they actually talk to human beings. They actually try to make eye-to-eye contact with human beings, mainly the parents and the mom and the dad and the siblings, right? And even their dogs and their pets. And so literally the kids practice what the brain will become, which is a human being. But if you have your child sitting in front of a TV 8 hours a day, guess what they're bonding with? They're bonding with the screen. And whatever is in front of the screen, that is what they're learning to be. So therefore, they are exposed to violence, if they're exposed to sex, if they're exposed to climax and conflict, they're going to be stressed out. They live in a world of climaxes and conflict. I don't know, it really kind of like irks me because it's really basic neuroscience. This is not rocket science, right? If you have a good character, it will be corrupted if you have bad company. So if your child's in front of a screen all day long and their company is basically, doing like the hot water challenge, on streaming media online. I don't know if you know about that, but there were kids who literally thought the hot water challenge was a real water challenge, and they're dumping hot water, scalding water on other kids as a joke, only to develop second to third degree burns. So, that goes with the Tide Pod challenge as well. Digital media influences your child behavior and mental health without a question. And so if they are constantly being aroused through this process of conflict and climax and then resolution within 30 minutes to 90 minutes a day, how do you expect them to live life, right? When life is not that action-packed as like a, special spy or, a superhero that they're watching. Life tend to be boring and more slow and more even keel. So that's what we need to expose our kids to more in order for them to become a healthy human being rather than abnormal, perverted, weird, human development.
Sure. Yeah, no, they definitely become totally disconnected to reality for sure. And I liked how you pointed out also that, kids who are allowed to be creative when they're young end up doing better academically when they're older. And also, I think there's a lot of parents now with kids who are preteens and teenagers who are struggling with depression. And I think they should know that there's definitely a correlation between spending time on technology and those sorts of signs and behaviors. So yeah, for sure. Very important.
Yeah, there's an article that talks about FOMO, fear of missing out, FOMO, FOMO. So basically, in the past, when we didn't have social media, for example, and cell phones, when we missed out on a birthday party, guess what? We didn't care. We didn't know about it, right? The only people we kept up with were our neighbors. So keeping up with the Joneses is already stressful enough because we have, if you live in a neighborhood, you have somebody who's the Joneses across the street, to the left, to the right, in your backyard. So literally the child's world is their block, right? When it was before technology. Now the child's world, when you expose that digital tool into their hands, their world just expanded 1,000-fold. So if you live in a community with a really large school district and they're connected to literally hundreds and thousands of kids, it's crazy. Now it's FOMO everywhere. So therefore, every weekend they're missing out on a party. Every weekend they're missing out on gifts. Every weekend they're missing out on vacations. Every weekend they're missing out on the best things that life has to offer. And so for a child, without that ability to have the maturity to say, listen, life is not like that, I need to shut that out, they literally will get depressed. They will look at that and I've seen it. For example, my 18-year-old daughter, at the time of her prom, she had, a wonderful prom date and a beautiful prom dress. She was so excited. As soon as she went online to social media and looked at other people's prom dresses, it totally stole her joy. Her date was not as exciting, and her dress was no longer, pleasing to her. So I said, you know what? Turn off your social media. Yes. And guess what? That joy returned literally within a couple of days, and she came and thanked me. And this is my 18-year-old daughter at the time who could not set up that healthy boundary and resist from going online and comparing herself. Same thing with my son. My son's a Division I track and field runner. He led his team, his boys team, to the first cross-country championships in the state of California in Division I. So CIF Division I is made up of over like 1,500 high schools. His school was #1 in the state. How long did that joy last for him? Literally, it only lasted like 8 hours because he's on social media looking at all the other teams who are now, winning, and also teams that were selected to the nationals, and his team was not selected to the nationals. It totally, completely stole his joy. So in a way, these technologies are great to connect us with people, but even adults have a problem with FOMO. I've known so many adult men and women who get so depressed with their life because when they go on, their spouse is not as good looking as other spouses, right? Their life is not as wealthy or as luxurious as other people. But what they don't realize is that people post only the best pictures of themselves, right, their spouses, the best angles, the best vacations. You don't know their background. You don't realize they spent $20,000 in debt just to go on this amazing vacation and posting all these photos, and people enjoy making other people jealous. We find enjoyment out of that, right? That's an innate kind of thing. Is like, hey, if I can make my friends jealous of me, that makes me kind of feel more important. Well, that's what drives social media sharing a lot of times, is people are trying to up one another. But that even makes adult people depressed, anxious, and dissatisfied with their life. And if adults have trouble with that processing, what do you think a teenager has, problems dealing with it when they are exposed to it, and with no restrictions?
Right. No, definitely. Very good point. I mean, definitely people only put their best foot forward. They're not sharing about their big argument they had with their spouse, or when their kids were having a tantrum in the store, because who wants to put that out publicly? So I think our time is almost up. I think I could chat with you forever. So if you could give one piece of advice to parents of little kids, what would that be?
I would say encourage your kids to be bored, and you don't have to be fearful that they're bored, because boredom brings out creativity, boredom brings out better brain development. And then I would also encourage parents that because you let your kids be bored, they will find creativity and self discovery of skills that they did not have. They will be ahead of the other kids. And that's what you want. You want your kids to be productive individuals in society. And that's what every goal of every parent should be, is to create productive kids in society. And so that's what I encourage parents to do, is listen to our advice, and your kids will be ahead, guaranteed.
Yeah, or at least be the best that they can be, right? And that's what I think all parents want. And I know I had asked you for some resources, and I think I'll put those in the email that goes with this interview. So make sure you guys all check out the links. But I know you had mentioned realbattle.org, and your book, of course, Hooked on Games, and gamequitters.com by Cam Adair, as well as Families Managing Media by Melanie Hempy. So I'll make sure that those are listed there for the parents, so they can follow up on their resources, since trying to keep these interviews so that parents can watch them in between watching their kids. So is there anything else that, I know I wanted to share that Dr. Doan, you had said if people went online and did a review of you on Facebook, that they would be able to get a download of your book. Is that?
That's correct. Yes, just go to facebook.com/Dr. Andrew Doan, DRANDREWDOAN,
Okay.
and just give me
I'll
a
supply
review.
that link as well. Yeah.
Email you a book.
Great. So you guys will be able to get a book, so you can learn more about Dr. Doan's extensive research. And I know we've only been able to touch on it in this short interview. So I really appreciate your time today, though, and I hope that the parents take this to heart and really help their kids develop to be the best that they can be. So thank you so much, Dr. Doan.
Thank you, Jennifer. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.